And then I hit my 40s, and all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was like, this is a crock of shit. Like, all of this is like, I'm only being like a watered down, minute version of like who I know I was created to be. And in that, I just decided I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm going to show up. So first of all, I had to take a slight bit of a journey of like, great, I've been this my whole life, but who is the whole me, right? So I did, some,
it feels good,
therapy.
It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles.
All right, Tiffany, you ready?
Yes.
All right, look at this glow I have going on with this slightly blurred background. I'm going to change that. But Ty, you ready?
Always, Kev.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the NWA to the 585 to the DFW down here, we have Tiffany Benitez, and this is going to be a mouthful here. We'll start where she was the director of IT at the one and only Lowe's, and then she went to be a senior director at Tyson for IT applications. Not to mention, she's a board member at Ozark Literacy Council, a board member at the Data Collaborative, the founder and president of Women in Tech of Northwest Arkansas, and to bring it on home, the head of data governance at Compass Group USA. My goodness. But before we get into this, Tiffany, if Kev and I are seeing you at the high dive at the Bentonville Public Pool today, over by the old Walton High, what is it? Old High. Yes. Are we getting a cannonball, a pencil, or a nice swan dive off the top?
Definitely getting a cannonball. Definitely.
Cannonball. Let's go.
I think every mover and shaker we've interviewed, I think it's 131 people now, have all said cannonball, Tiffany, or at least a good. I think someone said a pencil, and I don't think they would have cut it in our book over here.
Full force. I'm going all in.
Okay, and for like a pool snack, like when you were a kid, was it like the stadium nachos, or are you going for like the drumstick ice cream bar thing, or a Snickers bar ice cream?
Gosh, that's like sweet and savory. Kind of my favorites of both. Probably definitely the nachos with like lots of cheese and jalapenos. Spicy.
Yeah. I like to blow their minds. I tell them to fill up the cheese cup, the little cheese indention, and put cheese on my chips.
Same.
And they're like, that's extra, and you're like, I'm extra, right? And then I come back and my wife's like, you got the extra cheese all over the chips again, and I'm like, I like them soggy.
Me too.
You like them bending when you're going to your mouth? Yeah.
Because they're so cheesy and like, who wants the boring chip that you just like dip it in? I want like cheese all over it.
No, and a guy tipped me off the other day, guys. He said that cheese is that exact cheese is sold at Walmart right now, and you can get the and I was like the stadium nacho cheese. He was like the stadium nacho cheese, bro.
Wow. That's like the movies where it's like apply your own butter to the popcorn. Hands down, the best invention ever. Once they turn that control over to me, yeah.
Well, you got to have like fill it halfway up though, and then get a little layer in there, right? That's
I watched the pros. Don't worry, I watched them. All right, Tiffany, if you had to write a clickbait title for your autobiography, what's the title of your book?
Little Girls in Boxes.
Oh, all right. I love that.
Girls in boxes.
Yeah. Actually, I have written a book that has been out there for a few years, but my second book that I'm almost done with is Little Girls in Boxes. And I guess if it was going to be a title, people would think that means that a little girl wants to be in boxes, but it's really about how we're defining the boxes and all of the places that we've been put in as women, and just really thriving in authenticity, which is where we were born to be.
I love that. And I can't wait to get into that topic because I think the blueprints, right, that society has cast on just about every single one of us rarely aligns with the blueprints of our soul. So,
yeah.
All right, next question. If we caught you singing on whatever interstate that y'all got going down in Arkansas at the top of your lungs, what's your guilty pleasure song?
Oh, guilty pleasure songs. So I love music. I can usually be found singing any Moana song, and my husband his ears. Like, my family detests when they see Moana coming on the TV. So I grew up in Hawaii. Moana is my spirit animal. I feel like just get to the water and it will fix everything. That's really like the soul. So I can really be found singing any Moana song, lots of Disney songs. And if we're going to be a grown up, I guess, which is super overrated, Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball.
Oof. Yeah.
Dude. And I love the Moana. So I have bad ears, like I told y'all, so I have to look up lyrics. So I couldn't even understand the how far it goes. I didn't know what she was singing. And I was like, I literally Googled what are the lyrics to the Moana song, and then I couldn't get enough of it. Do you listen to songs so like over and over if you like one until you're like sick of it for a little bit?
So if it annoys me, I just don't listen to it. And then the ones that I love, I just listen to it. And also, if I could say, I love music and I sing a lot, but I was not born a singer. And so I always ask my husband if he thinks it sounds okay. And he says it's a joyful noise. And that was the mom's nice way to say that my baby's not ugly. Yeah, I am not a good singer, but music touches my soul. So depending on what mood I am. Y'all remember the ringtones from back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
When people could call you and it was like the ring back. So people always knew when my mood changed because I changed the...
Dude, where did those go? I thought those were going to be around forever. I don't hear any ringtones now.
Yeah, my phone's always on silent. I don't want to know when it's ringing unless I'm available, I guess, mentally and physically.
As an adult, it's always on silent.
Yeah.
Well, Tiffany, how does Wright's barbecue compare to North Carolina barbecue? I know the sauce is different, the mustard vinegar stuff, which yes. I actually made my own sauce, and it was like kind of sacrilegious for like Arkansans to make like mustard vinegar sauce. How does it compare to North Carolina to you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna offend every hog in the state of Arkansas.
No, you're gonna Oh, don't talk bad about Wright's. Oh, here we go.
I'm just saying, like, that's how Arkansans identify as just the hog. So I'm gonna offend everyone, okay? But I don't like Wright's. Like, they do have good mac and cheese. I'm not down with okay, and I get it. Listen, I have this argument all the time about the Mason-Dixon line because this is the Midwest, but according to the Mason-Dixon line, it's the South. It is not the South. From a cooking perspective, I love food. I'm a foodie. So from a foodie perspective, yeah, I'm all in. North Carolina barbecue. Yes, vinegar based. It's my thing. Like the barbecue sauce that comes out of the jar. I don't even eat that on nuggets. Like,
it's not even good enough for nuggets.
No.
You do coleslaw on a pulled pork sandwich?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the slot, it gets a little cool down. Little mayonnaise hits the meat. Yeah, it's almost like sour cream on nachos, Kev.
Yeah. Well, I forget. I do remember visiting North Carolina. We went to wherever Mayberry was filmed. My mom's a massive Mayberry fan. And I think they had like a fried pork sandwich or something, but it was like a pork chop. Is that what it is? Yes. It was ridiculously good. Yeah.
Dude, we just had someone talk crap about Wright's barbecue on here, Kev.
I've never had it, so I'll join Tiffany's bucket just because I don't want her feeling all alone over there. But
y'all, everybody loves it, so I will take the stand. Like, I am the unpopular opinion here, and again, it's not that it's like nasty. Okay, so let's also say this: I'm not a huge like pulled pork fan unless it's North Carolina barbecue. It's the sauce that makes it something different. So again, in fairness, like I am not the standard opinion. My husband is also from North Carolina, adores Wright's barbecue. I can have a charcuterie over a barbecue sandwich any day, but if I'm eating barbecue, it's definitely going to have to be Wright's. Okay. Or not Wright's, North Carolina barbecue. Yes.
My goodness, this is awesome. Well, Tiffany, I want to get into how organized you are, Tiffany. I every time I see you, you're doing something, and the care you have for people. Like, how do you keep up being like the head of data governance at Compass Group USA, and before that, you were a senior director at Tyson. But when I met you, you have so much passion, wanting to help women out in technology. And I know I'm a pretty busy bear, but I think you take the cake here, Tiffany. Like, how do you plan your weekdays, and how do you have the energy on top of all this to keep up with your day to day, and to not, and you don't half-ass it either on the non-day to day stuff. You really go for the jugular. I feel like. How do you balance the day, and where does that energy come from?
Absolutely. I would say I spent a lot of my life in a different season than I'm in now. And so I'm very type A, where everything, I've got like my 1-year plan, my 5-year plan, like a whole action plan on how to get there. And while I feel like that got me some really good places, and brought some of, I guess, what the world would define as successful places, I spent so much time with my eyes focused on the plan that I was missing every moment of the present and of today. And so this current season is a little bit more chaos. There's a lot going on, but I feel like I'm really in the moment. When I stopped in my early 40s, I stopped and asked myself, okay, I'm doing a bunch of things, but how much of that aligns with my passion? And my passion is people. So I've always had a heart and a passion since I was a little girl for any underrepresented group. And being a woman in technology and being this tiny fraction and watching this for everyone, I wanted something different. And so I think a lot of people have a passion, and I think they want to do things different, but words and actions are two different things. So you can either sit around and complain about there being a problem, or you can put solutions in. And I just prefer to not complain, okay, bring some awareness and talk about it, but then just drive solutions on how we can change that. So once I started really understanding what my passions were, those became what are my true priorities, right? And so obviously we've got I call them my crown jewels. That's how companies refer to them, right? From a data perspective, I got my crown jewels and family and what am I passionate about and what am I driving to? And then I make sure everything that I say yes to aligns with what those priorities are, which it may not look like it. I hear this all the time, especially from LinkedIn, but I say no to a lot. If it does not align with my crown jewels and what my top 3 are, and the top 3 changes by season, but if it doesn't align, it's a no for me. And I no longer feel bad about saying no, because I can't truly be all in on my yeses and what I truly care about unless I say some no's. And so I just honestly make sure that what I'm saying yes to is in my priorities and aligns with what I'm saying my heart and mission is. And then I just feel like I get the energy because I'm doing things that matter. I feel like I'm doing things that matter to my soul, and that my soul is helping other people. That's why I feel like I'm on this earth, is just to really create space for others. And in that, I just get energy to keep going and doing what I feel like matters. But I do want you to hear that in this being in the moment, it is juggling. Okay. And so there's a lot of balls rolling. There's a lot of balls. And let me just tell you, in this season of being in the moment, there's a lot of balls getting dropped. But what's not getting dropped are the crystal balls. They are protected. And I always ask myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And when a basketball drops, it just bounces back up. No one's dying. Used to say to my teams at Tyson, we make chicken nuggets. We're not doing heart surgery. So it's just understanding, being okay with this season means I'm going to be wholly present, and I'm going to be doing what my heart is really after and what I'm passionate about. And also, I don't have it all figured out. I'm going to show up authentic. We had a big event with 200 people, and I forgot to update the last slide. So it said our next event was XXX. But what people left that night with was okay, there was a funny, but I just stood up and said, sorry, it's been busy. The last slide didn't get updated. And this is the place to show up if you don't have all of your shit together, and it's fine. So creating that authenticity and space and freedom to not have it all together. I'm sure this exists for everyone, but I'll tell you, for women, we always have to show up and be on, and everything has to be perfect. And we have to have our social reels on, and it's super overrated and exhausting. And that's not any of our reality. So.
Yeah. And I think it gets back to what the title of that book is, right? This box, these societal norms that some of us agree with and some of us are victim of, right? And I loved what you said, Tiffany. I think in business, especially in some of the places that you mentioned, they're always looking forward, which almost pulls you to look forward as your natural tendency, because they always want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. They somewhat care about what happened yesterday, but today doesn't really exist. So that power of now, right, I think is so important, but that presence, right? And I think it's the more you accept yourself, the more comfortable that you become in these imperfect moments. And I think you just perfectly captivated why Tyler and I started this podcast was there was other podcasts that, yeah, it looked like perfect, right? There was no ums and ahs and breaths in between. And then we have this unrealistic picture that everybody thinks that they need to fall into. And yeah, that whole, I feel terrible that women always feel like they have to be on, it's not authentic. And I'd be guilty if I told you every time I stepped into the business world that I didn't think that I had to be on. But yeah, it's amazing how close we get to what we do, and it really starts to become our identity. That's really where I said that I needed a clean break, because it just became that purpose. And I love how you keep referring to that as like seasons. I think that we go in with this idea that our purpose and our passions will always stay the same throughout every season of our lives, even though so much is changing. And Tyler, just like when you and I first became dads, I mean, we're not even the same people. And I think that's really the cool part about our show, is that that's followed us through different seasons of our life. I wanted to go back to something because you talked about the discovery, Tiffany. So long we can go through life with almost these blindfold on, right? We stay in that box. The box is comfortable, it's warm, it's cozy. We always say, hey, take a step outside your comfort zone to grow. Everybody has heard these cliches, but when you really reflect back as to that discovery process, can you take us through what that was like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and I'm just going to, without being here for a long time, I'm going to walk through, my journey on this. So early in my career, and, I'm going to make this statement from a perspective of a woman because I'm a woman, but I think this is kind of gender agnostic. I think we all maybe have this journey. But for women, earlier in my career, I won't ever stop talking about that there's 28% of us as women in technology. And when you start getting to, C-suite roles, it's single digits, okay? And the reason I bring that up is because in my journey, earlier in my career, again, no shame, I'm in my mid-40s. So when you think back to, earlier in my career, there were, barely any women at all. So when you start thinking about mentorship, which is really important to your journey, because those are the people you look to kind of help guide you. Even before mentorship was formalized, it was happening, but they're the people that you look up to and that kind of guide you. And so number one, there weren't a lot of women. Those women were wearing multiple hats and a lot of pressure. And so they really weren't taking on mentorship. So I am so incredibly blessed, even today, by the male mentors that I've had in my life to really walk me through and hold my hand. But what I got as feedback from the few women that did pour into me was, take your seat, don't be too loud. Don't speak too much. Don't wear red lipstick. Don't wear red heels. Make sure your nails are neutral. Okay, so as silly as this sounds, this was the guidance. And listen, my dad was a command sergeant major in the Army. You follow those rules, okay? So I'm taking notes. I'm following all the rules. And I'm living my life like this because this is what you're told to do. And this is what we're supposed to do, right? And so I did all this. And then I hit my 40s. And all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was like, this is a crock of shit. All of this is I'm only being a watered down, minute version of who I know I was created to be. And in that, I just decided I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm going to show up. So first of all, I had to take a slight bit of a journey of great, I've been this my whole life, but who is the whole me? Right. So I did, some, listen, if you don't do therapy, you should do some of that. It really helps you navigate some really cool things. But seriously, I say therapy is not a one and done, just do it. It makes your life better. But, so I just took a little bit of a journey for myself to really understand, someone asked me, if you had to do nothing in this world, you didn't have a mortgage, you didn't have to do anything, what would you do? I could not answer her question. I knew nothing outside of my career and big corporate about really who I was and what I wanted, except that I could feel I wasn't being all of me. So anyways, took my journey and I just really decided to break out of the box. And I decided that I'm going to show up in every single room, no matter if it's a boardroom, no matter if it's an executive leadership team meeting, if it was a community meeting, that I was going to show up and be all of myself. And all of myself isn't everyone's cup of tea. If you don't know me, I'm kind of loud. I have a lot of energy. I wear a lot of colors. Colors make me happy. And those are the things. And I'm going to screw some stuff up. And I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to create spaces and freedom for other people to feel the same and to know that like they don't have to be on all the time, like we just talked about. And that is authentically who I am. And that was a journey that I decided for myself, not really understanding that journey over the last several years has created freedom and space for other people to do the same. And so my journey has really looked like not knowing who I was, but knowing I was some watered down version. And then committing, like once I realized, I kind of took those rose colored glasses off. I just said, how could I ever be like the leader or you can fill in the blank with anything, right? Leadership isn't a title. It's how you carry yourself. It's who you surround yourself with. It's who you impact. But I was going to be someone that would lead in every room that I got in and just from a place of authenticity. Yeah. And that's been my journey. And it has been the most powerful, incredible last few years of my life and that comes with, again, like not everyone loves Tiffany, and that's okay. Yeah. It doesn't make them bad or me bad. It's just maybe we're not eating at the same table all the time.
Yeah. I love so much about what you said, and Tyler, it probably sounds like an echo in this room because I know I've shared with Tyler a lot of my journey as well. But to the same point, I remember texting Tyler, it was probably a year and a half ago now, and he was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I need to figure out who I am," because I honestly have no idea. To your point, Tiffany, it's like. Yeah, I feel like I was playing pretend and dress up for so long that I forgot who the actor actually was. I got lost in this role. And I wanted to ask you, and Ty, I promise I'm not going to hog Tiffany today, but I wanted to ask you, what makes us different that we looked to our career as our identity? You can call it workaholic. I think you got the same tendencies there. And maybe it was parental expectations, right? I think, and then expectations that I put on myself. And maybe it's a part of that American dream. But I had some buddies that literally dropped everything, drove out to Utah with no plan, no job. And they were just as content and happy and satisfied, right? And low stress, no anxiety. I don't know if it's our personality types or our upbringing, but through that journey, what self-reflection or self-awareness have you found in that bucket? Like, why were we wired that way?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give you my opinion, but this is Tiffany's opinion, right? It doesn't mean like this is the answer. But what I do feel like a lot of it is upbringing, but I do think there's something that from that upbringing, how we were made and how we're wired meshed in a certain way, because I have two siblings that are also wildly successful, but seem to have like a different take on life. Like one of them will go do exactly what your buddies did. The other one wired a little bit more like me. So we're in this like hamster wheel corporate. But I would say that I think it is some of the upbringing, right? But some of us, back to how we're wired, will do exactly what we were taught. Or exactly, because a lot of it is like not just our parents. It's like, think of the world we live in. Like all of the messaging, even if someone didn't verbally tell you that, subliminally, we're taught a lot. Like our culture, our society, everything we listen to, we see on TV, we hear on the radio. It all kind of feeds these norms, these social norms that we're talking about. And some of us just conform to what that is. And then some of us are just like, oh, forget all that and do all that. And the rule followers will get to a place in their life. Mid-40s was it for me, right? Of like, yeah, I don't want to anymore. Like I did everything. I checked all the boxes that I was after. And also I'm completely unfulfilled. So now I'm going to pivot and go be this like risk-taking free, right? And again, I think we still have some pieces of how we're wired. Like we'll evaluate the risk some, but we will go take the risk where maybe like 20 years ago, we wouldn't have taken the risk. So I do think it's upbringing. I think it's part of how we're wired. And then a lot of it really boils down to like what we're taught. You referred to it as the American dream. And I love me some America. But right now I'm not really dreaming about the same thing that everyone else is. Like, and so how do we then start living our lives? And listen, I say this all the time. We're all living this life. We have different paths. We have different goals. If tomorrow is your last day, what I can promise you is that at your funeral, no one is going to be talking about your job title. They're not. They're not going to talk about your job title or where you work or how many dollars you forecasted and saved your company. What they're going to be talking about is what type of a human being are you? What lives did you touch? What memories did you leave behind? What was your brand? When people that don't even know you, when someone says your name, what do they think? And even if they've never met you, like LinkedIn, right? All of your social media sets a brand for yourself. And those are the things that people remember. If they never speak to you or they speak to you and you never see them again, what do they remember? And that's what matters. And I think, Kevin, to your question, there comes a point of like realizing that some sooner, some later, I don't know, like maybe our friends, because I have friends that did the same thing and they're wildly happy. And part of me like wants to go just do that too. But there's that part of me back to the wired thing of like, oh crap, I also need to pay a mortgage and my kids, I have to finish like raising them, you know, so how much risk can I take and still be okay from a sanity perspective and, you know, and just from a making sure everything's okay, you know?
Well, no, I agree. And I think what I realized too is the difference between mind, right? And I think you and I were using our mind so much, right? Paralysis from overanalysis or perfection or whatever we want to call it, that my soul was really what was left in silence, you know, and until you started to listen to that instinct, that gut or that intuition, that's where really it started to set me down a different path as well. Ty, what do you got?
Tiffany, I was going to go back to that scary ass question that that lady asked you, who you are, if all your bills were paid. Has that answer changed for you today at all, or is it? Besides, like, you know, being the leader, I mean, what would you be doing if you didn't have to pay the bills?
Yeah. Okay, so I would tell you that I believe that the answer is a journey. So as I talk about seasons, right, the seasons are constantly changing. This life is constantly changing. My answer 5 years ago is going to be different from my answer today. And I bet if you ask me again in 5 years, it's going to change. But I will tell you, I had no answer. And that disturbed me. Like, it didn't really disturb her. I think I gave her like an okay response where she just moved on. But I got off that call and I was so disturbed that I could not answer, what would I do? I mean, she didn't even say like, who do you want to be, right? She was just like, if you had to do nothing, what would you do? And I could not answer her. I knew nothing outside of my career. I knew nothing outside of big corporate. And for me, I thought in that moment I was fulfilled. And when I started, then it started my journey of digging. And in the digging, what I've understood and what I'm still like, yes, working to pay my bills, but also in all of these other places that I'm plugged in and setting my feet, is that that's where the passion is coming in. It's what I would do if I did nothing is I would help create change and impact for a multitude, and not measure it by numbers, but measure it by where is there a need and how would I plug in what I've learned and what I've built and who I am to help satisfy a need and continue to create more space. So it's not just about Tiffany doing it. It's about creating a cycle where people can replicate it, right? So if I help you and then you help someone and they help someone, it's more than just me helping you. And that's what it's about. It's about a cycle in this nasty world of creating a place where it's a chain reaction of people moving outside of all this perfection and things that we're spending, because we're spending our energy on those things. Like, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have it all together. So you can either waste your time trying to get there, which you will never get there, or spend your energy on something better, right? Like, okay, I'm half good at this. Like, let me not waste my time there. I'll just stay half good at that. And let me go be really great at the things I'm great at and share that with other people. Like, it's not just about me being great. Our society and our nation is we live in a me world. I have to grow. I have to shine. And in the midst of that, we have lost the vision and understanding that we are better together and that there's more power and change that can happen when we lock arms instead of just focusing on yourself.
Absolutely. And I think there was like subliminal messages growing up, you know, with Wall Street, you know, greed is good type stuff. And it just, you see all the guys in like the suits and stuff with the big skyscrapers. And then like, you get older, at least in my experience, and it's kind of, you're over that, you know. It's like, let's work remote, man, and have fun with our families, and just, you know, find some joy in that. But I wanted to go back, Tiffany, on the energy part. And in my experience, energy is pretty easy to have when good things are happening.
Yes.
Like, I noticed, like, when good things happen, I'm not even hungry, and I love food. I don't need vitamins when things are going. I feel like my body's producing so much good. But what happens when things go sideways in your day? Like, how do you keep? I think I forgot what president said it, but he said something about like enthusiasm is going from failure to failure without losing momentum or whatever. How do you keep that up? Because you, for dang sure, keep that up, Tiffany. Seeing you on LinkedIn and seeing you in person too. How do you keep it up when things are going sideways in your career and in all the groups that you're in?
I would tell you the definition of someone's true character is how they act, react, and operate. And I call them the valleys. Okay. So yeah, we can call them the rough times, the valleys, however you want to do that. But it's actually in those places that the most growth happens. And so it's for me, and listen, I am not perfect. There are days that, no shame in my game, there are days that I'm the mom in the closet crying like, okay, am I really going to do this? But there's two things that I do. Number one, I remind myself, like, whatever it is you're going through is temporary. So are you going to start making like permanent actions, reactions, statements, based on something temporary you're going through? It is a constant reminder to myself of who I am, what my value and what my worth is. Because none of us wake up every day remembering those things. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's some intentionality on reminding ourselves, especially in the hard times. You're not the thing that happened, right? You're something more than that. A thing happened, but how you get out of this and how you navigate it does very much speak to your character and who you are. And people are watching. So it's in those moments that they're actually watching the hardest. So making sure, and it's not about a show for anyone else, but it's about making sure that you're staying true to who you are, what you actually know, not what you feel, because our emotions are all over the place and will guide you wrong mostly every single time. So stay out of your emotions. Like, feel it. I say deal, don't dwell. So feel it, deal, and move on. And so for me, that's really how I do it. The other, I will tell you, most powerful thing is that as much as I try to do that for myself, there are days that I just don't feel it and I'm not really sure. And that's where I have an incredible tribe. I have an incredible, not everyone belongs in our circle, but I know that my inner circle are my ride or dies. And those are the people that are going to tell me, if you don't get your ass up out of this closet floor and move on, you need to remember who you are. You need to remember what you're doing. You need to remember who you're impacting. And listen, transparently, I had a moment last week. This lady came for me hardcore. I mean, she came for me hard. Okay. And for a moment, I was like, and I didn't tell anyone, but for a moment I felt defeated. I'm I'm literally pouring all of my time and energy to help people. And then I had to remind myself, that's one person's opinion. She gets to have her opinion, and that's okay. I don't have to accept your opinion. I can look at the data behind what I'm doing. So again, data removes all the emotions. I can look at the actual data behind the things that I'm doing and knowing that what I'm doing and what we're doing matters. And that's what I have to remind myself. But having those people also that can remind you is very powerful, because there's just days that you're not going to remember on your own.
Yeah. I just saw a quote the other day to your point. I think it was something about, when people looked at David, they saw a slave. When God looked at David, he saw a king, and going by what people, to your point. And I think that was why I was always a facade for me, right? Because to your point, we all have read the book about People Always Forget What You Do from Maya Angelou, or you can even go to Dale Carnegie, right? So I was always really conscious of how I was making people feel. But to your point, when you go beyond that boundary, you forget about your own wants, right? And your own worth and the ability to say no. And I was a yes person. I would always say yes, even though I desperately wanted to say no. And to be honest, most of the stuff that I would miss was all the shit I wanted to say no to, but was too chicken shit to, So I think what you said is the remembrance of who you are. Because I think sometimes people I still love people that bring up stories from high school or the glory days. It's I don't even think about that stuff anymore. But there's so many people that are trapped in this version of themselves. But I think, Ty, too, I thought money was going to fill a void of happiness or that joy or that peace. And these were all words that I think everybody used, but it seemed so far out of the norm. It seemed almost imaginary to have those things. And that's that external focus that I had more than the internal. And Tiffany and myself and Tyler, obviously, you clearly, I think it is that internal motto that you're telling yourself. Tiffany, do you, from I guess call it an affirmation, or something that you repeat to yourself to get you back in alignment of that mind, body, and soul, what is it? Like what if you don't mind sharing, what brings you back into center?
You have nothing to prove. That is my statement.
Love that.
You have nothing to prove. And listen, it's a journey. Again, every day it's a reminder to myself, because sometimes you like start creeping back to like the old way of feeling, or someone will say something to trigger something on how you were before. You have nothing to prove to anyone. Okay. You don't answer to anyone on this earth, right? Like someone might pay your bills, like you might have life, like all those things. But the reality is like, you have nothing to prove. You are good enough. If you don't know your own value and worth, neither will they. And you can fill in the blank with of who they are. So show up, know who you are, know what your value is, know what your worth is, come in as your whole self. And remember, you don't have shit to prove to anyone.
I love that. Yeah. Mine's no judgment and no expectations. Because to your point, you're the judgment piece, right? If I did start to slip back, and then I would judge that. And I think that's tough when you start looking back on your past and some of the decisions that you made based off of today's information and today's knowledge and today's wisdom. That gets really silly really quick. So yeah, the no expectations have led to a lot of less, I think, resentment, and less disappointment. All those buckets.
Yeah, I've been finding a lot of power in failure lately. It's like I think the people that I trust the most have like really messed up a lot. And that's what I try to explain to the kids, Tiffany. Like when they're like the devs are interviewing for jobs, I'm like, okay, this hiring manager wants to know what went south at the end of a development cycle. And the kids are hilarious, Tiffany. They're like, oh, nothing's ever happened bad. And I'm like, dude, that means you don't have any experience. And they're like, oh, really? They want to know what happened bad. And it is a cultural difference I've noticed too. Like some cultures, they're like, I don't mess up, dude. And I'm like, oh, you mess up, man. You've been doing this for 14 years. Something had to go bad. And they're like, they want to hear what happened bad. And I'm like, of course, dude, people want to hire someone who's been through hell and back in a way.
Yes.
And that's what I've noticed a lot. But Tiffany, like when you're talking to these young women that are getting into tech, like how are you coaching them from day one? Say someone just shows up at your Women in Tech door, doesn't have any experience at all. What is that first step looking like for them, especially with this AI stuff going around? What do you tell them?
I will tell you, my first step is to ask them, do they know who they are? So before we start chasing tech or a career, I feel like what our previous generation, and they did this with the greatest intent. Every generation does what they were taught and the best that they know how. And again, it's good enough, right? But it's up to each of the next generations to figure out how does that best serve you. And what we were asked was, what do you want to be when you grow up? Pick a career. And also our parents were like, hey, also maybe choose one of these because they're a little bit more successful and make more money. Again, with great intent. Our parents wanted the best for us. But what they never asked us, and the reason we get into our mid-40s or whatever age it hits you, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I did everything I was out to do and I'm completely unfulfilled, is because no one asked us, like, what kind of person do you want to be? What are you passionate about? And so I have every single person I mentor, before we start talking about your career and where you're going, who are you? I asked them the same question that lady asked me. If you had to do nothing, what would you do? Okay, great. Then we start walking through steps. And once we start figuring out like what that is, okay, how do we now build revenue around that? That's when we start talking about a career. And listen, you can do anything you want to do and do it in tech because tech touches everything. And we are leaving the days of tech being a siloed department of X number of titles. Like with Gen AI on the pace it's on, tech will be everyone's job, right? And again, it won't be some siloed department, but then, okay, great. How do we bring some knowledge and experience and understanding from a technological perspective into what you're trying to do? Like you could want to be a stay-at-home mom, right? And let's figure out how you can be the best stay-at-home possible, which means you can equip your kids, you can teach them and get them involved in communities and get them involved in different technology learning. So I think it's whatever you want to do, but understanding who you are and what you're really passionate about. And then let's try to build some like career things around that. It's the first place I start because it's the last place I ended up, right? And I feel like it is our duty that as we learn these things and as we figure some things out, it's not just for you, right? Your testimony is rarely anything to do about you. Your testimony is how do you help someone else that's going through the same thing. And it's very powerful, but we like to just tuck all that away and pretend like it never happened when there's someone beside you literally dying, but you don't know that because remember, we don't share anything.
Yeah.
So that's the big deal about our podcast. And obviously you all's too, is like, let's just show up and talk about all like the things that no one talks about, because that's the actual crap that matters. Like I was so sick of like showing up and listening to podcasts and like, listen, I already felt like crap before I came to the podcast. And then I left feeling like more crap because wow, they had it all together and no one shared like all of the real things that we're dealing with it and going through. And I just wanted to be that place where like it could be authentic. We could show up, we could just have a conversation and people could leave being like, oh my God, my cup is so full, because I'm not the only one. And I can also be wildly successful and not have my crap together all the time, you know, but I think these are the things that I share with the younger generation and that I feel like is our responsibility. If you show up and you want me to mentor you, the answer is likely hell yes, because I'm only here for people. So I'm going to make sure to figure out a way. Mostly people don't ask because they make an assumption that you're busy, but I always tell them, don't ever assume. We know what assuming does. If you need help and this person emulates what it is that you need, just ask. Women struggle a lot with this. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. Just ask. The answer might still be no, but he or she may be able to refer you to someone else that could. So it's still a win in the long run. And then maybe the answer is yes. So it's just some of those things, again, that I share back with, though that's not traditionally what we're taught or we're told. If I show up to a networking event, I'm probably not going to hear any of that. So I try to share some of those things that have been wildly impactful to me. And if it works for them, great. I also say I'm not giving you a prescription on what it looks like because our lives are different. But here's some of what has worked for me.
Yeah. And I love what you said about your testimony. You know, I think that's that pay it forward approach. And I loved how you talked about the valleys, you know, and everybody wants to talk about the mountain that they climbed, but not really the steps that it took to get there. And yeah, I slipped a couple times and I had to walk through this valley. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me, right, is back to those networking events. Tyler and I, during the pandemic, we used to play a game by not telling people what we did, and saw how nuts, right, that it actually made the person, and it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation through that wiring, to your point. And I loved how you associated with that question, right? That what do you want to do when you grow up? It was never about like how does it feel, right? And that's almost like that projection of perfection, right? That society we talked about Mayberry before, but I think Mayberry became like everybody's real life. And I love how you said it, like we're not talking about our real shit, you know, and now everybody's like yearning for real shit. And yeah. I remember calling Tyler, and when I started reading books, and I think I'm up to like 50 some odd books, but I was like, holy shit, I'm not the only one that thinks that way. And I've never voiced that before. So I just love all of that, Tiffany, because I think we can talk about this like barrier of connection within work. And I think this is that invisible barrier, that dark matter that nobody wants to talk about because we want to give off this persona of perfection for fear of judgment. And I just love how you put that. So I just wrote down insecurities become our rules and our expectations of self. Unknowingly. And to your point, who the hell cares, right?
Okay, guess what? I brought that same motto down to Dallas, man. When people ask me what I do, I say, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I'm a Razorback. And they're like, what do you do? I go, that's a lot to do.
But that is the reality of like, I don't care what group you go to, what organization you go to. The first thing they ask you, before they even ask you your name, where do you work and what's your title? Yeah. And it drives them insane. And back to like mottos, I will tell you, there is this one that I wholeheartedly live by. What other people think about me and say about me is none of my business.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Your perception on what you think and what you say, if I need to live rent free in your head and you need to go talk about me or do whatever you do whatever you need to do. I'm still going to be living my life doing incredibly amazing things over here. And it means I'm not going, I choose and I get to choose that whatever you say or however you're judging me, do whatever you need to do. That's none of my business. I'm going to be off over here spending my energy on things that matter.
Oh, that feels so good, Tiffany, to hear that. Yes. Yes. And I always like to tell people, to not take yourself so seriously because no one else does. Rule 49 is, I make up a different number every time. but it's just fun actually making connections. My VP says I'm the worst, best sales guy of all time. Because if you heard me do a sales pitch on IT staffing and solutions, it's not in my chest, guys. It's just but it's my favorite part of me, I guess. And I finally found something I finally found a company that just said push as much Tyler White into the freaking community as possible. And what's cool is what I've gotten into. Like I told Kev, I'm doing jujitsu, I'm shooting shotguns, I'm working out at 5:30 in the morning with a bunch of CISOs, you name it, and I'm getting healthy. I think I've dropped 35 since I've seen you last, Tiffany. And it's all and my cardio is off the chain right now, by the way, guys. And I'm box jumping to grab rebounds better now off the rim almost. I can get the rim, Kev. It took me 7
impressive.
weeks, but I'm back to the rim.
Wow.
But it's just fun. If you can make business to me an activity and fun, it's a whole different ballgame. Then people start asking me for business. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. I never thought you'd ask. Yeah, I can help you with that. But Tiffany, I wanted to really ask you, how the hell did you climb up the ladder so quick in your career? Who the hell gets into it and then all of a sudden you're a damn, what was it, vice president of products at Bank of America for 11. And then, you're tech program manager at Walmart, then the director of technology at Little Lowe's over here. And then your job at Tyson. How do you teach the women? I know it's different now, but how did you do that?
It was the moment that I realized that I mattered. So it's all of this stuff we've been talking about today. And then when I realized that, I decided I was going to create my own strategy and path. If I go to one company and stay my entire career and there's 12 to 18 months before I can move to the next role and I play the game, I'm never going to get to where I want to be. So I'm going to create a different game and I'm going to run my strategy and I'm going to do incredible things and learn incredible things. And then when the company doesn't see my value or worth or have a position, then I have to strategically make some other decisions. I think for a long time, our culture has pushed loyalty, and loyalty is great, but we need to remember, we are a number on a balance sheet for a company, and we've always known that, and that's okay, and that's why layoffs and hard decisions happen, and we tell everyone it's not personal, it's business. Absolutely. But you also have a balance sheet and it's not personal, it's business. And so you are in control of your career. You own that. No one owns that for you. So I really just decided to drive my strategy and my career and show up. And listen, I've been tapped for 90% of my jobs. So I haven't had to really go on an applying journey. I've set a brand for myself and I've done really incredible work that people can speak to. So the proof is in the pudding.
Dude, I love it. There's not loyalty on either side nowadays, which is hilarious to me. Now, I'll run into situations where a hiring manager will be like, this candidate has jumped too many jobs. Little does the hiring manager know that I'm trying to find his boss a job.
Yeah. Literally. I mean, that's exactly it. It's
That's also assuming that the company has never changed, right? And to track a different revenue stream, and I loved how you put it. Loyalty. I wouldn't call it dead. I think it's just a shared responsibility. It used to be one direction, right? It was this was your duty. And I just wrote down too, is our business is not a religion, but I think it became one. It's not here. This is business, right? And again, where the blanks don't really get filled in, and all the business things were all the things that were unethical, and you would never do to somebody else if it wasn't business. So, what's one piece of advice that you talked about mentors and you talked how it used to be organic and I guess this is a twofold question. What's the best piece of advice that you ever got? And how did you prevent yourself from competing, right, with other women within the space because there wasn't a lot of other women? So it's easy to compete with others when there's not a lot of, and to just stay in your seat and not really kind of open the doors for others. Twofold question, I guess. Yeah.
I would say the best piece of advice that I've ever been given is to use my voice. Which again is in direct contradiction on what I was told earlier in my career. So if you get your seat at that table, you better make sure that you use your voice and you use it intelligently. So make sure you know and understand what's happening so you can bring value to that seat. And then create additional seats. So that's the best piece of advice I've ever been given. And I will never stop sharing that with everyone. And then I will tell you, going back to from a competition, I'm in competition with no one other than myself. So something again, and like we are directly taught the opposite of that. But what I say is that when we understand the power of what happens when we link arms and come together, especially as women, there is something powerful that happens, and I can do a lot and you can do a lot, but together we could do more than we could ever do individually. And so understanding and linking arms with people that really truly understand that. I'm not saying men don't. Again, I'm a woman, so I can only speak from this perspective, but for women, we have had to fight for most everything in our life. And so we basically show up as baby autoimmune diseases. We are just fighting everything. And what we don't realize is we're fighting off the bad. So we need to get the awareness, get the understanding, and then we need to choose to do something different. And that's where I'm just going to choose to show up and do it in a different way and show others that can be done. And if you want to continue to compete, go ahead, but you'll be competing with yourself, not me.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea of the scarcity and abundance mindset. And I was talking to my therapist and my coach the other day, and she brought it up that sometimes we can cling to the miracles that we've been given, that we prevent all other miracles, future miracles from happening. And to your point, you start to identify this is my seat, and that's what I think I used to, and Tyler, we've talked about it before, but I think sometimes we overprotect, right? We don't want other people to grow. We want them to grow, but not to outshine us because I like my seat, and I think we've all worked for a lot of those people, especially in corporate America, because it's not always performance based. It is political. It is the yes people that traditionally go with the flow and drink the Kool-Aid. That those are the ones that they really like to have be a puppet, pretty much.
Well, when we stand up and decide we're not going to, and they see enough people doing that, then they'll have to change and adjust some things.
Yeah, they get a little nervous. I think that's what we saw during the pandemic. It's like, wait a minute, the 6 of us aren't in control of the 10,000.
This has been incredible. Great conversation.
Yeah.
Man, I like how authentic this is. And I will share with you, I was talking to a VP who's going to be on our show coming up, Cav, yesterday. And he was like, I'm going to start a podcast, but I don't know how to make it authentic. And all I said was, well, James, make it authentic, man. And he was just like, the light bulbs just went off in his head. He was like, that's all, he was just like, Tyler, thank you. That's all I needed to hear. So I think, I don't know, there's something about talking to real people that just make my day better, like you, Tiffany. And I know every time me and Kev do this, sometimes we are tired before we do this. We're both dads with newborn little toddlers running around. But every time talking to someone sharp like you, Tiffany, it really makes my day better. And I don't know. And I wish you the best, Tiffany. And I'm so glad you joined on Timeout with Leaders. And I really want to introduce you to Fern Johnson. She was a previous CTO at Pepsi. And you two might be able to take over the world soon if I know y'all pretty well.
Yes, let's do it.
That may be a new addition to the tribe.
Yes, I love it. You guys have been incredible. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a valuable conversation. My cup is definitely full. So thank you for having me on your show. If you guys ever need anything at all, reach out and let me know.
All right. Well, here we go. Tiffany Benitez, everybody. I'm going to hit stop right now.